Founding era, 1973 to 1983. Hip-hop wasn't born in a studio, it was born in the wreckage. In the early 1970s, when redlining and expressways tore through New York neighborhoods, one place stitched everything back together, the Bronx. In 1973, a Jamaican-born DJ named Kool Herc threw a party at 1520 Sedgwick Ave. There, he unveiled a new technique, cutting between two records to extend the breaks. Dancers loved it. He called it the merry-go-round, and it changed everything. DJs today still act like they invented it on Twitch. Grandmaster Flash took that technique and leveled it up, not just cutting and scratching, but essentially doing open heart surgery on vinyl while the crowd danced like their lives depended on it. Scratching, cutting, juggling vinyl like a surgeon. His quick mix theory turned tables into instruments. What looked like chaos became choreography. And then came the MCs. At first, they were just hype men, call and response chants to keep the party hype. But soon, artists like Melly Mel started turning hype into messages. Not just throw your hands in the air, but listen to this. In 1979, Rapper's Delight by Sugar Hill Gang made hip-hop a commercial reality, even if it borrowed lyrics without credit. A few years later, The Message by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five would prove that hip-hop could carry truth, not just rhythm. Meanwhile, Africa Bambaata's Zulu Nation defined the four pillars of hip-hop like a street smart philosopher. DJing, MCing, breakdancing, graffiti. It was like a cultural starter pack that somehow turned Subway kids into expressive superheroes. Bambaataa basically made the first syllabus for Hip-Hop 101. Hip-hop wasn't just music, it was a movement. By 1983, this Bronx-born rebellion had gone global, thanks in part to movies like Wild Style and Beat Street, which broadcast the graffiti tag trains and windmill-spinning b-boys straight into living rooms worldwide. The Golden Age, 1984 to 1989. Now that the industry was watching, hip-hop sharpened its teeth. Sampling technology exploded. With tools like the SP1200 and the MP60, music producers weren't just looping breaks. They were building sonic mosaics out of funk, soul, rock, and chaos. The Bomb Squad made beats that sounded like riots. Marley Marl engineered the East Coast sound from the ground up. MCs pushed lyricism into a new territory. Rakim's flow was effortless geometry. Like if Shakespeare had a cousin who sold tapes out of the trunk and studied Euclidean theory in his free time. Like he was writing rhymes with a protractor. KRS-One brought philosophy to the block. LL Cool J mixed bravado with teenage angst. And Public Enemy, they brought the revolution. And not the kind with hashtags. Chuck D's voice could shatter windows and wake your third eye, while Flavor Flav looked like he escaped from a cartoon with a PhD in chaos. Meanwhile, Run DMC broke into mainstream America like they had a crowbar and a boombox. They didn't just collab with Aerosmith, they crash-landed into MTV and made the suburbs fall in love with shell-toe Adidas. It was like culture shock in stereo, rocking leather, Adidas, and bringing Aerosmith with them. Slick Rick turned storytelling into street theater. Bedtime stories, if your bedtime included heists, heartbreak, and gold chains the size of extension cords. Salt and Peppa and Roxanne Shante proved women didn't need permission to rip the mic. They didn't ask for a seat at the table. They flipped it, remixed it, and sold it like gold. Even the Beastie Boys crashed the scene, like punk rockers who took a wrong turn and ended up in a block party, but somehow made it work, making hip-hop's first #1 Billboard album. Fashion exploded. Gold chains, Kangol hats, graffiti-covered denim. Breakdancing turned into Olympic-level performance. Hip-hop wasn't just a sound, it was style, it was a spectacle. But not everything was smooth. A rift emerged between boroughs. The Bridge Wars pitted the Bronx against Queens in a battle for credit, showing that hip-hop's biggest threats often came within. Still, this era didn't just kick down the door. It laid the foundation for regional sounds, lyrical diversity, and the idea that rap could both be brainy and brash. The Coastal Wars, 1990 to 1995. The 90s began like a boom-bap symphony and ended like a battlefield. In New York, Nas dropped Illmatic, a cinematic masterpiece where every bar painted Queensbridge in a grayscale poetry. Biggie's Ready to Die merged radio-friendly gloss with raw street confessionals. He made pain sound poetic, and party tracks feel like eulogies with a beat drop. Wu-Tang Clan moved like a swarm. One part kung fu movie, one part lyrical dojo. Their debut album felt like entering a haunted house full of swords, Shaolin chants, and Staten Island wisdom. The only rule? Protect your neck. Kung fu, grime, and business strategy all rolled into one. Meanwhile, on the West Coast, Dr. Dre dropped The Chronic, a G-Funk explosion built on synths, bass, and laid-back menace. Snoop Dogg coasted over it like smoke, effortlessly cool, unbothered by gravity, and sounding like he recorded his verse on a recliner. Tupac? He was everything. Poet, profit, and fame. Ice Cube added political firepower, flipping anger into activism. Hype Williams made rap videos look like mini movies. The sound, the look, the energy, everything got bigger. But so did the beef. Tupac's 1994 shooting and accusations against Biggie lit a fuse. The 1995 Source Awards turned into a region versus region war. And suddenly, diss tracks weren't just lyrical, they were lethal. This era gave some of the greatest rap albums ever made, but it also left the culture scarred, and a generation of artists gone too soon. The commercial era, 1996 to 1999. After the deaths of Biggie and Tupac, hip-hop walked straight into the boardroom, dressed in a shiny suit and a diamond chain. Puffy turned mourning into marketing. No Way Out wasn't just music, it was a movement. Mace made Harlem smooth. Jay-Z dropped Hard Knock Life and turned a Broadway sample into street gospel. He made Annie sound like she grew up in Marcy Projects. The hustle was real, and Jay was already thinking like a mogul, while other rappers were still cashing their first checks. At the same time, DMX barked from the basement, raw, angry, spiritual. Lauryn Hill's The Miseducation blended rap and soul so masterfully, it won 5 Grammys. The South made its case with No Limit and Cash Money, proving that hip-hop could sound like a tank rolling down Bourbon Street. Every album cover looked like a bootleg Marvel poster. Bass-heavy bangers and bling so loud it couldn't be ignored. Missy Elliott and Timbaland went full alien with beats that sounded like NASA signal interference. They turned radio hits into intergalactic funk missions and wore trash bags better than most people wear designer, with beats that sounded like UFOs over Atlanta. But critics worried. Had hip-hop gone soft? Where was the message? Had the shine blinded the truth? One thing was certain. Hip-hop was now pop culture. The mixtape era, 2000 to 2004. If the commercial era was polished, the mixtape era was grimy. Artists took back control, flooding the streets with CDs, teaming up with DJs, and letting the people decide what slapped. 50 Cent dropped Get Rich or Die Tryin' after a mixtape run that turned him into a legend. Lil Wayne started flooding the internet with bars like he had a leak in his brain. Mixtape after mixtape. It felt like the man never blinked. He was dropping metaphors faster than most rappers could tie their shoes. So creative, they broke the rewind button. Kanye emerged in Chicago, soul chopping his way into genius territory. He was flipping samples like a short order cook in a 5-star kitchen, and somehow turned Shaka Khan into chipmunk soul. T.I. turned trap into a genre, a sound built on paranoia, bass, and hustler wisdom. He basically handed out audio blueprints for how to survive the streets, and land on BET in the same week. Dipset made Harlem a fashion show wrapped in chaos. Pink furs in summer, bandanas on everything, and bars that made you feel like you were eavesdropping on a rooftop cypher after too much Hennessy. Piracy was everywhere, but it didn't matter. The fans weren't buying, they were believing. Mixtapes weren't just marketing, they were a revolution. The blog era, 2005 to 2009. Then came the internet. Suddenly, artists didn't need labels. They needed a blog cosign and a zip file. Websites like Nah Right, Two Dope Boys, and Dat Piff turned into digital street corners, and the kids logged on. Lupe Fiasco and Kid Cudi rapped about anxiety, dreams, and self-doubt, turning the booth into a therapy session with weights and anime references. Kanye flipped soul samples into symphonies, then broke everything with 808s and heartbreak, turning pain into pop. The lines between albums and mixtapes blurred. J. Cole dropped a warm-up and Friday Night Lights, and made it sound like he was mentoring you while dunking over your insecurities. Free tapes that felt more polished than label debuts. Meanwhile, artists like Nipsey Hussle brought West Coast grit back to the blogs, one free drop at a time. And fashion followed suit. Out went baggy jeans, in came skinny denim, stutter shades, and a new aesthetic of emotional vulnerability. But while fans loved it, labels didn't know what to do with it. Free music meant free exposure, but zero revenue. Still, the blog era changed the rules forever. It proved that the gatekeepers were gone, and that a clever tweet or cult following could spark careers bigger than radio play ever did. The trap takeover, 2010 to 2013. Atlanta didn't ask for the crown. It snatched it. Trap music kicked in the door with rattling 2 styrofoam cups and absolutely zero regard for noise complaints. Future, Gucci Mane, T.I., they weren't just rappers, they were trap ambassadors. Chicago introduced his darker cousin, Drill. Chief Keef's Love Sosa and I Don't Like felt like war chants, the kind you'd hear if Call of Duty had a Southside expansion pack. Lex Luger and Mike Will Made It changed the soundscape overnight. Southside and TM88 made beats that felt like boss fights in a video game. This wasn't polished. It was raw, explosive, addictive, like your cousin's mixtape in a rusty Honda Civic, except it slapped way harder. Meek Mill brought that energy north with Dreams and Nightmares, a track that still gets played like it's a national anthem for underdogs. If you ever heard that intro in a gym, you probably added 50 pounds to your PR by accident, blending breathless flow with unfiltered hunger. The result? Trap didn't stay boxed in. It infected pop music, EDM, and global club culture. This wasn't just a sound. It was survival with a baseline. The SoundCloud era, 2014 to 2017. Then came kids with laptops. No label deals, no engineers, just Wi-Fi, pain, and a repost button, plus a SoundCloud bio written like a therapy session. SoundCloud became the Wild West of rap, and the teenagers took over. Florida gave us Tentacion and Ski Mask, two rappers who looked like anime villains and screamed like their mic owed them money. They were unpredictable, unfiltered, and completely unbothered by industry rules. Philly brought Uzi. Chicago raised Juice WRLD. Atlanta had Lil Yachty. Their songs were distorted, offbeat, full of autotune, raw emotion, and it worked. Lil Pump made chaos sound catchy, like if a Sugar Rush had access to Pro Tools. Juice WRLD poured heartbreak into every bar, like he had a breakup with the alphabet and kept the vowels for the hook. X shifted from screaming to acoustic mid-track. They broke every rule, and fans followed. Videos looked like they were shot on flip phones. That was the point. Cole Bennett's Lyrical Lemonade became the new MTV, if MTV was run by a hyperactive art student with a drone and a coloring book. His visuals were weird, brilliant, and just glitchy enough to hypnotize Gen Z into clicking replay. Every drop could turn a nobody into a headline. This was real for a new generation drowning in depression, confusion, and too much internet. It wasn't perfect, but it was authentic. And that's why it changed everything. The algorithm age, 2018 to 2021. Then the feed took over. Spotify playlists, YouTube trending, TikTok loops. If the algorithm didn't bless your track, you were invisible. But for those who cracked the code, fame came faster than ever. Lil Baby turned melodic trap into a business model. The kind where every flow was efficient, every line was a tax write-off. He went from street corners to sneaker commercials without skipping a beat. Megan Thee Stallion went from freestyles to Grammys. Pop Smoke gave Brooklyn Drill a global passport, combining grime-inspired beats with Brooklyn's bulletproof confidence. His growl wasn't just a voice, it was a warning shot. Roddy Ricch made the box into a looping earworm. The kind of track that haunts your brain like a catchy ghost. You didn't even know what the meant, but suddenly it was your whole personality. Jack Harlow rode catchy hooks and confidence into arena tours. Imagine if a BuzzFeed quiz became a rapper and got a GQ cover. TikTok wasn't just an app, it was a kingmaker. If your first 15 seconds slapped, you had a hit. Meanwhile, genre boundaries collapsed. Latin trap, UK drill, melodic emo rap, rage beats, lo-fi. It all mashed into one endless scroll of sound. But the cost? Oversaturation. Homogenization. Everyone was chasing the same loop-friendly formula. Hip-hop didn't disappear, it just got fed to the feed. The Kendrick vs. Drake era, 2022 to present. Now, we arrive at today, a war at the top. On one side, Drake, global, polished, algorithmically invincible. On the other, Kendrick Lamar, calculated, cerebral, a sniper in poetry form. Kendrick returned with Mr. Morale and then Not Like Us, reminding everyone that therapy bars could hit just as hard as diss bars, especially when wrapped in West Coast stomp and smoke. A diss so sharp it felt like a cultural reset. Each line sparked memes, debates, reactions. The internet turned into a battlefield. Drake held the numbers like Thanos held Infinity Stones. No matter the drama, no matter the diss tracks, the man could drop a voicemail over lo-fi piano and still chart top 5. For All the Dogs stayed glued to the charts. His formula still worked. Meanwhile, new voices kept flooding in. Ice Spice, Yeet, Tyler, Doja Cat, Metro Boomin. Genres splintered further. Rage, melodic drill, alt rap, jazz rap. Even AI crept in. Drake's fake Tupac track stirred panic and curiosity at once. Suddenly, ghostwriting wasn't just a job. It was a server-side setting. It was like Black Mirror met SoundCloud. Suddenly, everyone was asking, can AI beef now? And the fans, they weren't just listening, they were picking sides, analyzing bars like legal evidence, organizing meme battles, and turning Twitter threads into court transcripts. This wasn't just music anymore. It was Shakespeare with 808s. If you blinked, you missed 3 diss lines, a meme war, and a genius annotation arguing over metaphors. The biggest battle hip-hop ever faced? Staying real while staying relevant. From vinyl crates to algorithm feeds, every era remixed the rules and the soul. Today, the mic is still hot, the culture still evolving, and the next chapter is being written right now.